I should have just said no. That's what keeps replaying in my head. The moment she walked up to me at the rest stop, the moment I could have shaken my head and kept walking to my car. But I didn't. Because saying no to someone who needs help feels wrong. Feels cruel. It was just past 9 on a Wednesday night. I'd left Phoenix that morning, heading to Albuquerque for a work conference. 7 hours in, I was tired, caffeinated out, and desperately needing to stretch my legs. The rest stop off I-10 was one of those newer ones. Clean bathrooms. Vending machines that actually worked. A few picnic tables scattered under LED lights that made everything look washed out and pale. There were maybe 6 other cars in the lot when I pulled in. A family loading kids into a minivan. A guy walking his dog near the grass. An older couple sitting at one of the tables, sharing something from a paper bag. Normal. Safe. The kind of place you don't think twice about. I was heading back to my car, keys already in my hand, when she approached me. Mid-30s maybe. Professional looking. Slacks and a blouse like she'd come from an office. Hair pulled back. Tired eyes. She apologized for bothering me, then asked if she could borrow my phone. Said hers had died and she needed to let someone know she was running late. Her charger was in her car, but the battery was completely drained. I hesitated for maybe 2 seconds. Not because she seemed dangerous. She didn't. She seemed stressed and embarrassed, and like someone who'd had a long day. I handed her my phone. She thanked me and stepped away maybe 15 feet, turning her back to give herself some privacy. I watched her for a moment, then looked at my own car. Checked my watch. Calculated how much further I had to drive, and whether I should grab another energy drink from the vending machine. She wasn't on the phone long. Maybe 2 minutes. When she came back, she handed me the phone with a genuine smile and thanked me again. Said I was a lifesaver. Then she walked quickly toward a silver sedan parked on the far side of the lot. I got in my car and pulled back onto the interstate without thinking about it again. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Text notification. Then another. Then 3 more in rapid succession. I glanced at the screen, expecting spam or maybe my boss checking in about the conference schedule. But they weren't incoming messages. They were sent messages. From my phone. Messages I hadn't written. The first one was just my location. Drop pin. Highway and mile marker. The second was a screenshot of my GPS route. Albuquerque marked as the destination. ETA showing 10:47 p.m. The third was a photo. It took me a second to understand what I was looking at. Then I realized it was taken from inside my car. Over my shoulder. While I was driving. Before I'd stopped at the rest stop. My hands went cold on the steering wheel. The fourth message was worse. It was my license plate number. Make and model of my car. Color. And the fifth message was a text that just said, confirmed. All sent to a number I didn't recognize. All sent while she'd had my phone. I slowed down, exited the messaging app, and checked my call history. She had made a call, but it lasted less than 10 seconds. Not long enough for an actual conversation. Just long enough to confirm someone answered. My mind was racing now, trying to piece together what had just happened. The photo from inside my car meant she'd had my phone before the rest stop. But that was impossible. I'd had my phone the entire drive. It had been in the cup holder, then in my pocket, then in my hand when I walked to the bathroom. Except, I'd left it in the cup holder while I went inside. Doors unlocked because I was only going to be a minute. I pulled up the photo again, zooming in, looking at the details. The timestamp was from 40 minutes ago. Right around when I'd stopped for gas at that truck stop outside Tucson. I'd gone inside to pay, left the car running because it was hot, left my phone in the cup holder because I was just running in and out. She'd been in my car, while I was inside paying for gas. She'd gotten in, taken the photo, gotten back out. And then what? Followed me? Waited for me at the rest stop? I checked my rearview mirror. 3 cars behind me. Headlights reflecting off my mirror. Too far away to make out details. One of them was a silver sedan. I changed lanes. The sedan changed lanes. I sped up to 80. The sedan sped up to 80. My phone was still in my hand. I thought about calling 911. But what would I even say? Someone borrowed my phone and sent messages I didn't authorize. I couldn't prove anything. Couldn't prove someone had been in my car. Couldn't prove I was being followed. The next exit was 12 miles out. Small town. Maybe I could pull off, find a police station, a well-lit parking lot, somewhere public. But then I thought about what she'd sent. My route, my destination. If I pulled off the interstate, they'd know. They'd follow. And in a small town at night, there might not be anywhere safer than the highway with other cars around. I stayed in the right lane, hands locked on the wheel, eyes flicking between the road and my mirror. The silver sedan was still there. 3 cars back. Patient. My phone buzzed again. Another message. Sent from my phone to that same unknown number. All it said was, exit 340. I looked at my GPS. Exit 340 was 38 miles ahead. A rural exit. Nothing out there but desert and darkness, and maybe a gas station if you were lucky. The conference hotel was in Albuquerque, right off exit 340. They knew exactly where I was going, exactly where I'd be stopping for the night. I tried to think, tried to form a plan. I could skip the exit, drive straight through to Albuquerque proper, find a different hotel, but they had my license plate. They could find me anywhere. Call the police. That was the smart thing, the only thing. But my hand was shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. That's when the silver sedan changed lanes, moved up alongside me in the left lane, matching my speed exactly. The window started to roll down. I didn't look over. Every instinct told me not to look. Just keep driving. Eyes forward. But I could feel someone staring at me from that car. Then my phone rang. The unknown number. The one she'd sent all those messages to. I answered without thinking, put it on speaker because my hands wouldn't leave the steering wheel. A man's voice. Calm. Almost friendly. He asked if I was having a nice drive. I didn't respond. Couldn't. He said I should take exit 340 as planned. Check into my hotel. Get some rest. Said I looked tired. The sedan's window was fully down now. I could see the silhouette of someone in the passenger seat, watching me. The voice on the phone told me not to worry. Said they weren't going to hurt me. They just needed to know where certain people were going to be. People traveling alone on business. People who stayed in hotels with their names on reservations. People who were predictable. He said the woman at the rest stop was very good at what she did. That I wasn't the first person to be helpful tonight. That there were others on the road right now, driving to their destinations, thinking they were safe. I asked him what he wanted. He laughed. Said that was the wrong question. The right question was what I was worth. How much someone would pay to know I'd arrived safely at my hotel. How much I'd pay to make sure I did. The sedan pulled ahead slightly. I could see the woman now in the passenger seat. Same professional clothes. Same tired eyes. She gave me a small wave. My exit was coming up in 2 miles. The man on the phone told me to take it. Check in. Wait for instructions. He'd be in touch about payment. Said if I went to the police, they'd know. They had my phone number, my email, my credit cards. Everything they needed. Then he hung up. The sedan accelerated and disappeared into the darkness ahead. I took exit 340, because in my head, I had no other option. I checked into the hotel using a credit card they already had access to. Got my room key. Went upstairs. I never got another call. Never received payment instructions. Never heard from them again. But here's what I did find. 3 days after that drive, there was a news report about a body found off I-10. A business traveler. Same route I'd taken. They said it looked like a carjacking gone wrong. 2 weeks later, another one. Different highway. Same story. I don't know if I was supposed to be one of them. Don't know if paying would have saved me or made me a target. All I know is my phone still works. My credit cards still work. My email still works. And sometimes late at night, I'll get a notification. A text from an unknown number. Just my location with a dropped pin, letting me know they still know where I am. I should have taken the interstate. That thought kept looping through my head as I stared at the orange construction barrels blocking Highway 47. The Detour sign pointed left onto some county road I'd never heard of. No route number, just a faded wooden arrow and the word Detour spray painted in black. My phone showed 1 bar of service. The GPS had stopped updating 10 minutes ago, still insisting I was on the main highway. I tried refreshing it. Nothing. The little blue dot just sat there, frozen on a road I was no longer driving. It was past 11. I'd been driving for 6 hours already, trying to make it to my brother's place in time for his wedding rehearsal the next day. The construction came out of nowhere. No warning signs, no flashing lights ahead of time. Just suddenly there it was. Road closed. Take the detour. So I did. The county road started normal enough. Paved. Center line still visible. Trees pressing in on both sides, but nothing unusual for rural Montana. I figured it would loop back to the highway in a few miles. These detours always do. Except this one didn't. 5 miles in, the pavement got rough. Potholes I had to swerve around. The center line disappeared completely. 10 miles in, I hadn't seen a single reflector post or road sign. Not even one of those little mile markers. 15 miles in, I started looking for a place to turn around. That's when I realized I hadn't passed a single driveway. No mailboxes. No fence lines. No lights from distant farmhouses. Just trees and more trees, pressing closer to the road with every mile. The kind of empty that doesn't feel natural. Like something had scrubbed the land clean of people. About 20 miles in, I slowed down and checked my phone again. No service at all now. The GPS was still frozen on Highway 47, mocking me. I decided to risk a 3-point turn right there in the middle of the road. There was nowhere to pull off, just a shallow ditch on either side and then woods. But I hadn't seen another vehicle since leaving the highway. The road was mine. I put the car in reverse, cranked the wheel, and that's when headlights flooded my rearview mirror. A pickup truck, big one, sitting maybe 30 feet behind me, engine idling. I hadn't heard it approach, hadn't seen lights coming up behind me. It was just there. My first reaction was relief. Another person, someone who could tell me where this road actually went. I shifted back into drive, pulled forward, and waited for the truck to go around me. It didn't move. I waited another minute. The headlights just sat there, burning into my mirrors. I couldn't see the driver. The lights were too bright, positioned too high. All I could make out was the dark shape of the truck's grille and hood. Maybe they thought I was still trying to turn around. I put on my hazards and pulled as far right as I could, giving them plenty of room to pass. The truck pulled right with me, maintaining the exact same distance. A weird feeling started crawling up my spine. I turned off my hazards and continued forward, driving slowly, thinking maybe they'd flash their lights or honk if they wanted me to pull over completely. Nothing. Just those headlights following. For the next 10 miles, it stayed around exactly 30 feet behind me. Never closer. Never farther. Never trying to pass. Never signaling. Just following with this weird mechanical precision that made my hands start sweating on the wheel. The road got narrower. What started as 2 lanes had shrunk to maybe 1.5. The trees were close enough now that branches scraped my passenger side mirror. I kept driving, because what else could I do? I couldn't outrun a pickup truck in my Honda Civic. Couldn't turn around with them behind me. Couldn't pull over and confront them, because everything in my body was screaming that this wasn't normal. This wasn't some local rancher heading home late. This was wrong. The road narrowed again. Now it was barely wider than my car. The trees formed a tunnel overhead, blocking out the moon. My headlights seemed to disappear into the darkness instead of illuminating it. And behind me, those high beams just kept burning, never wavering, never blinking. I checked my odometer. 38 miles since the detour. 38 miles on a road that supposedly looped back to the highway. The needle of my fuel gauge sat awkwardly between 1/2 and 1/4. The trees suddenly opened up on my right, not to a field or a clearing, but to nothing. Just black empty space where the ground should have been. A cliff maybe, or a ravine. I couldn't tell. My headlights wouldn't reach far enough. The road narrowed again. I could feel the branches scraping both sides of my car now. Constant, like skeletal fingers trying to hold me in place. The road ahead was barely 6 feet wide and getting tighter. There was no shoulder anymore. No place to stop. Just forward momentum and the crushing weight of those headlights behind me, pushing me deeper into wherever this was leading. And then I saw it. Up ahead, maybe 50 yards out, the road was narrowing to a point. A literal point where the trees met in the middle and the pavement just ended. I slammed the brakes. The truck behind me stopped instantly. Same distance, 30 feet, like we were connected by an invisible chain. My engine was still running. The headlights behind me were still burning. But everything else had gone completely silent. No wind, no insects, not even the sound of the truck's engine anymore. even though I could see it idling there in my mirror. The trees ahead weren't moving to let me through. This wasn't some optical illusion or a fork in the road I'd missed. The pavement genuinely ended, like someone had erased the rest of it from existence. I looked at my fuel gauge. It had dropped below a quarter tank now. That didn't make sense. I'd been watching it drop way too fast. Faster than it should have been. Like the road itself was draining something from my car. From me. I put the car in reverse. The truck's headlights blinked off. Complete darkness swallowed everything. My own headlights seemed dimmer suddenly, barely reaching 10 feet ahead. I couldn't see the truck anymore. Couldn't see anything behind me except black. But I could feel it there, waiting. I shifted back into drive, and the headlights returned. Immediate. Blinding. My hands were shaking now. I tried my phone one more time, already knowing what I'd see. Dead. Completely drained. It had been at 40% when I took the detour. The road ahead was maybe 20 feet wide now. The point where it ended was close enough that I could see it clearly. No gate. No barrier. Just trees growing so thick and tight that not even light could pass between them. I thought about running, leaving the car and just bolting into the woods. But where would I go? 42 miles of nothing behind me. Trees so thick ahead I couldn't see past them. I looked at the truck in my rearview mirror one more time, really looked, and that's when I noticed something I'd missed before. The headlights weren't reflecting off anything. No chrome bumper catching the light. No windshield glare. Just two perfect circles of white light and absolute blackness around them. Like looking at headlights through a photograph. I blinked hard, thinking maybe exhaustion was playing tricks on me. When I opened my eyes, the truck was closer. 10 feet behind me now, not 30. I hadn't heard it move. My hands found the gear shift, every instinct screaming at me to do something. Anything. But my fuel gauge was sitting dangerously low now. The road ahead was impossible, and the thing behind me wasn't following the rules anymore. Here's the thing they don't tell you about getting lost. Sometimes you're not the one who's lost. Sometimes the road finds you. Sometimes it's been waiting for someone like you. Someone who'd take the detour without questioning it. Someone who'd keep driving forward, because going back seemed impossible. I pressed the gas pedal. The car moved forward, toward the point where the trees met. And the headlights behind me followed, now maintaining the 10-foot distance. The trees didn't move apart. They didn't need to. The road just kept going, narrowing and narrowing, and I kept following it because by then I understood. This wasn't a detour anymore. It was a destination. My fuel light came on. I pressed harder on the gas anyway, moving toward that impossible dead end, and the headlights followed. Closer now. Close enough that I could feel the heat of them through my back window. The trees didn't part. I didn't expect them to. But right before my front bumper would have hit them, I saw it. A gap. Barely wide enough for a car. The kind of gap that shouldn't exist but did, like the road had always known exactly how much space I needed. I drove through. The headlights behind me stopped at the tree line. Didn't follow. Just sat there, watching, as I kept going into whatever was on the other side. About 30 minutes later, I came out onto Highway 47. Not a different highway. The same one. The construction barrels were behind me now, on the opposite side, like I'd completed some kind of loop that shouldn't have been possible. The GPS calmly informed me I was 12 miles from my brother's place. I made it to the rehearsal on time. Nobody asked why I looked like I hadn't slept. Nobody mentioned that my car was covered in scratches on both sides, thin lines running from bumper to bumper like something with fingers had been holding on. I didn't tell them about the detour. What would I even say? That I drove 42 miles on a road that doesn't exist? That something followed me through it? That I came out the other side, not even knowing what was following me? Sometimes I check my Maps app, zooming in on that stretch of Highway 47, looking for any county road that branches off where the construction was. There's nothing there. Just forest. Solid green on the satellite view. Last week, my brother sent me a photo from his honeymoon. They'd driven through Montana, taken the scenic route. In the background of the picture, barely visible, there's an orange construction barrel and a wooden detour sign. I called him immediately. Asked him if he took the detour. He laughed and said no, they'd turned around and found another route. Said something about the detour looking sketchy. Smart choice. I didn't ask him what would have happened if he hadn't turned around. If he'd kept going like I did. Because some questions are better left alone. And some roads only appear when they're looking for someone specific. The gas station appeared out of nowhere, which should have been my first warning. I'd been driving through Nebraska for 4 hours straight, watching my fuel gauge creep toward empty, while the GPS kept insisting the next station was only 11 miles ahead. Except those 11 miles kept stretching, and the prairie kept rolling past my windows in endless waves of darkness. Then suddenly there it was, a single island of fluorescent light in the middle of absolutely nothing. 2 pumps, a small building with bars on the windows, the kind of place that probably sold more lottery tickets than actual gas. It was nearly 2 in the morning. I'd been trying to make it to Denver by sunrise, pushing through the night because I'd promised my sister I'd help her move into her new apartment. The kind of promise you make when you're not thinking about how lonely Highway 30 gets after midnight. I pulled up to the pump and killed the engine. The silence that followed felt heavy, wrong somehow, like the air itself was holding its breath. Inside, the attendant barely looked up from his phone, middle-aged guy with gray stubble and tired eyes. He rang up my prepay without a word, and I was halfway back to my car when I noticed the man standing near the air pump. He looked normal. That's the thing I keep coming back to. Jeans, a dark jacket, work boots. Clean-shaven. Maybe 35. The kind of face that wouldn't stand out in a crowd because there was nothing particularly memorable about it. He caught my eye and walked over, hands in his pockets. Not rushing. Not aggressive. Just there. He asked if I was heading east. Said his car had broken down about 10 miles back and his phone was dead. Just needed a ride to the next town. He'd be happy to chip in for gas. I hesitated. Everything you're supposed to do, every true crime podcast I'd ever listened to, every warning from my parents about picking up strangers, all of it flashed through my head in about 2 seconds. But it was 2 in the morning in the middle of Nebraska. I'd passed maybe 4 cars in the last hour, and he seemed genuine, polite, a little embarrassed about asking, actually. So I said yes. He thanked me and climbed into the passenger seat. Didn't touch anything, didn't adjust the seat or mess with the radio. Just sat there with his hands folded in his lap, staring straight ahead through the windshield. I pulled back onto the highway and tried to make conversation. Asked him where his car had broken down. He said about 10 miles back, near mile marker 337. I'd passed that marker. Hadn't seen any broken down vehicles. I mentioned that. He just nodded and said maybe it was a different marker. Easy to lose track of them in the dark. Fair enough. We drove in silence for a few minutes. The road stretched out empty in both directions, my headlights carving a tunnel through the darkness. Every now and then, I'd glance over at him. He hadn't moved. Hadn't even turned his head to look out the window. Then he mentioned I should take the exit coming up in about 6 miles. I hadn't told him where I was going. I said I was actually staying on the highway for a while longer. He smiled a little and said sure, but the truck stop at exit 412 had better coffee than the one I was planning to stop at later. My hands tightened on the wheel. I hadn't mentioned any truck stop. Hadn't even decided if I was going to stop for coffee. It was just something I'd been thinking about, silently, in my own head. I asked him how he knew I was planning to stop for coffee. He turned to look at me for the first time since getting in the car. His eyes caught the dashboard lights in a weird way. Reflective, like animal eyes in headlights. He said he was just guessing. People on long drives always stopped for coffee eventually. The highway felt narrower suddenly, darker. I became aware of how far we were from anything. No town lights on the horizon. No rest stops, no other cars. Just prairie and darkness, and this man sitting less than 3 feet from me. I tried to change the subject. Asked him what he did for work. He said he helped people. That's what he called it. Helping people. Said he met a lot of drivers this way. People who stopped to help him. Something about the way he said it made my throat tight. I asked what he meant by a lot of drivers. He was quiet for a moment, and then he said, so casual it almost sounded friendly, that I wasn't the first person to help him tonight. The road blurred in front of me. I blinked hard, trying to process what he'd just said. Trying to make it make sense. But it didn't. Nothing about it made sense. If other people had picked him up tonight, where were they now? Where had they dropped him off? And how had he ended up back at that gas station? I asked him that. Asked him directly. He didn't answer. Just kept staring at me with those strange reflective eyes. I started doing the math in my head. I'd been at the gas station maybe 10 minutes total. Pumped gas, paid, walked back to my car. In that entire time, I hadn't seen any other vehicles pull in or out. Hadn't heard any engines. The parking lot had been empty except for my Honda, and what I assumed was the attendant's truck parked around the side. So when had these other people dropped him off? And why was he still asking for rides? My phone was in the cup holder between us. I thought about calling someone. But who? And what would I even say? I picked up a hitchhiker, and now I'm scared, because he knows things he shouldn't. The next exit sign appeared in my headlights. Exit 412. The truck stop he'd mentioned. I hadn't told him I was nervous. Hadn't changed my expression or my driving. But somehow he knew. He asked me very calmly, very quietly, why I was shaking. I told him I wasn't shaking. But I was. My hands were trembling against the steering wheel, and we both knew it. He settled back into his seat, still watching me. Still wearing that small, knowing smile. He said maybe I should pull over. Rest a bit. These long drives could really mess with your head. The exit for the truck stop was coming up fast. Half a mile. Quarter mile. I had maybe 30 seconds to decide. I took the exit. The truck stop was bigger than I expected. Dozen pumps. A diner attached to the main building. Maybe 15 semis parked in the back lot, their running lights glowing in the darkness. People. Witnesses. Safety. I pulled into a spot near the entrance and turned off the engine. Told him this was as far as I could take him. Said I needed to stretch my legs, grab some coffee, and then I was heading back the other way. Complete lie, but I said it with as much confidence as I could fake. He didn't move. Just sat there, hands still folded in his lap. Then he thanked me for the ride and opened the door. I watched him walk across the parking lot toward the diner. Normal pace. Normal walk. He pulled open the door, and the warm light from inside spilled out across the pavement. He stepped through and disappeared. I sat in my car for a full 5 minutes, doors locked, hands still shaking, before I finally went inside. The diner was half full. Truckers mostly. A couple sitting in a corner booth. The waitress refilling coffee at the counter. And there, sitting at a table by the window, was the man who'd been in my car. He was talking to someone else now. A woman, maybe 30, with a tired face and trucker gear. She was nodding at whatever he was saying. I walked straight to the counter and ordered coffee I didn't want. The waitress asked if I was okay, said I looked pale. I asked her if she knew the man sitting by the window. She followed my gaze, then frowned and looked back at me. Asked what man. I pointed directly at him. At the table where he was sitting. Where he was clearly, visibly sitting. She stared at the empty table for a long moment. Then she suggested maybe I should sit down. Get some food in me. Long drives could play tricks on people. I looked back at the window. The man was still there. Still talking to the woman who was still nodding. But now he was looking at me too. Smiling. And as I watched, the woman stood up, pulled her keys from her pocket, and headed toward the door. He stood up to follow her. I tried to warn her. Started to move toward them. But the waitress put her hand on my arm, firm and steady, and told me I really should sit down now. When I looked at the window again, they were gone. The parking lot outside was empty except for the semis and my Honda. I drove straight through to Denver after that. Didn't stop for gas, didn't stop for food. Kept both hands on the wheel and both eyes on the road. My sister asked why I looked so wrecked when I got there. I told her I'd just driven all night. Sometimes now, when I'm on a long drive, I'll see someone standing at a gas station. Someone who looks normal. Too normal. And I'll remember the waitress's hand on my arm. The way she looked at that empty table. The way she told me to sit down. Like she knew exactly what I was seeing. Like she'd seen it before. If you made it this far, you're already part of the Grave Hour. Tap subscribe and hit the bell, so you never miss when the next nightmare drops.